Well, welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Right Down the Street. I'm Brian Burnett, the mayor of the city of Rochester Hills, and your host for this podcast. As you know, our loyal listeners, Right Down the Street tells the stories of the people that live in and around the greater Rochester community, the perspectives, their impact on the world, and we have a really exciting guest with us today. Before we get to that, just want to announce some exciting things as this is the start of year 3 for Right Down the Street. Last year, of course, we had some great guests. You see, I'm in my Lions gear today. We had Lions great Lomas Brown. We had Denise Illich. We had Dave Llewellyn. Of course, most importantly, we had my mom and grandma, still the top listened to podcast of the year last year, and they remind me of that continually. But we had a great year, and we found out some really exciting news that at the end of the year, Buzzsprout, which manages podcasts across the country, ranked Right Down the Street in the top 25% of all podcasts in the entire nation. So thank you to our loyal listeners. We appreciate you. And if you like what you're hearing, make sure you like and share so we can continue to grow our audience. And speaking of that, we have a great show for you today. Someone I'm really excited for you to meet. Joining us virtually here today is Erik Qualman. Let me tell you about this guy. If you haven't heard about him, you need to meet him and learn his story. He's also known, and we'll talk about this a little bit, as Equalman. He grew up in Rochester Hills and has become a digital leadership expert. He's a 5-time #1 best-selling author, voted the second most likable author in the world behind Harry Potter's J.K. Rowling, and she's done fairly well, right? She's doing fairly well. Erik is a current professor of digital leadership at Northwestern University, a former sitting professor at MIT and Harvard over here. Harvard's edX Labs. He's a popular motivational keynote speaker, has reached over 50 million people in 55 countries. I know what it's like to sit through your intro. It's always awkward, but welcome to the show, Erik Qualman. Welcome, Equalman. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Brian. I'm following the heels of your mom and your grandma. That's awesome.
They're tough, I'm telling you. They have a lot of inside stories. So I get them on once and then I don't ever bring them back because we don't really want to follow up and do any more deeper dives. But excited to have you here. Obviously, new for our podcast viewers and listeners is the fact now that we are visually showing our podcast. And man, you can't start without recognizing you have a brand. I'm going to try to mimic it. I won't be able to pull it off as well, not nearly as good looking, but I can at least pull off the same colored glasses. The bright green glasses, the nickname Equalman, kind of the superhero logo. You've landed on some fun branding. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, things happen for you, not to you. And I learned that the hard way. So my name's Erik Qualman. So first initial, last name is Equalman. And so when you get an email address, and I started as an intern at Cadillac, just down the road from Rochester. Obviously, I grew up in Rochester, but that was my first email address, Equalman. And I actually didn't like it. For 15 years of my career, did not like it because you'd be in a meeting and they'd go, man, oh gosh, we're out of coffee. Well, Equalman, you must be super fast with that superhero name. Why don't you run down the street and get us some coffee? So I resisted it for 15 years, really stepping into my story. But then my third book was doing well. It's called What Happens in Vegas Stays on YouTube. And they wanted to do a magazine interview. And for that, they wanted to do a cover shot and they said, hey, we want to have some fun with the cover. You got a weird email moniker and website, Equalman. Do you mind wearing some Clark Kent Superman glasses? I go, sure, let's do it. And they go, well, do you mind if they're green? I go, no, I went to Michigan State. That'd be awesome. And they bring them out and I go, whoa, those are really bright. So we do that, and then a couple weeks later, I flew to Kenya to give a speech. And the night before, as part of the arrangement, I was going to a rescue shelter to adopt a baby cheetah. Not to take home, my wife would not be thrilled if I brought a cheetah home, but just to support the local shelter in the area. And on the ride over, my host, she looked at me and said, hey, Erik, we had the Olympic sprinter Usain Bolt here 2 days ago. We filmed him. We'd love to film you and marry that footage together to raise more money for the shelter. And I go, let's knock it out. And then she goes, but obviously when we're filming, you want to make sure that you have your green glasses on. And I pause and look at her. I go, I don't walk around the world wearing bright green glasses. I'm from the Midwest. I wouldn't want people staring at me all the time like that. And the look of disappointment on her face, I never wanted to see that again. And it was that moment in time that I realized, wait, this isn't happening to me. It's actually happening for me. I need to step in to becoming equal man. And if I have to walk in discomfort wearing bright green glasses, but it helps one other person out in the world, then it's worth me walking in that discomfort. And so then all of a sudden it became a thing. And now, I go to speak at an event, they'll have 3,000 green glasses on the seats. There's schools around here that use them on Fridays. All the kids in kindergarten through sixth grade wear them to remind everyone to be kind. So basically, to shorten that up, it's just step into your story or step into the greatest chapter of your story. Don't do what I did and resist it for 15 years. Truly step into your story.
That's great. If I had $1 for every time somebody's story involved, a cheetah and, somebody just such a common story, and it all involves a cheetah coming into your life. So obviously you've written a lot of books, 5 at least, that have gone to the top of the charts. One of those called Socialnomics, right? Tell us a little bit about that, because obviously you've stepped into this space of digital leadership, and really that book was written in 2009, kind of long before social media has kind of exploded. I've watched a lot of your stuff. You've got some really interesting takes on that. First of all, did you coin that word, socialnomics? And is that tell folks what that's about?
Yeah, so I fell into the digital space backwards when digital wasn't cool. There's only like a couple kids in the corner at Cadillac, and crazy enough, I mean, it was like they needed Cadillac.com at the time when I was an intern. So like, you're young, let's figure it out. And so come 2009, I saw this thing called, at the time, MySpace. I saw how much my cousin was using it. I go, oh my gosh, this is the next big thing. We had websites, then we had taking your credit card online, e-commerce. Then we had these portals. Then we had search. I'm like, whoa, social media, this is going to be big, like bigger than anything we've ever seen. And at the time, everyone thought it was just for teenagers, just kind of a kid's game. And then I go, no, this is like going to change the way we live and communicate. It's going to change politics. It's going to change the way businesses are run. And so that's when out of frustration, I really wrote the book Socialnomics. I never thought I'd write a book. And so I got to write this down to let people know this is coming. It's going to change the way we live and do business. And so on the train, at the time I was living in Boston. And so I was on the train from New York to Boston, and I just go, to go meet with a publisher. I go, what should I call this book? I'm about to sit down with the publisher and talk to him about what should I call this book? I'm like Googling, I go, Socialnomics, 0 results. Perfect. No one has it. That's the name of the book. So that's how it all came about.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talk about, that book now is, if you can believe it, 2009 is, 14, 15 years old. How much has changed in the last 15 years with the digital landscape? We're big Lions fans here. Obviously, we've got a fantastic season. We were looking at some information about what the digital landscape looked like the last time the Lions won a playoff game. Of course, none of the social media platforms were around. There wasn't even cell phones or camera phones at the time. It's the march is so intense. Where do you think we'll be 15 years from now? What's your next book in 15 years going to be writing about relative to the digital landscape?
No, I love it. Restore the roar. It's so good. So good. But the last time the Lions won a playoff game would have been 91. So websites didn't even exist. So
right.
Kind of crazy when you think about that. So as we look ahead, obviously top of mind right now is artificial intelligence. I think it's overhyped in the short run, but underhyped in the long term. So, and then if you look at the book Socialnomics, a lot of those things came to fruition, right? I talked about in there, hey, it's now called streaming, but I'm like, you're going to just order, you're not going to have this big cable thing, you're going to have streaming. So a lot of stuff came to fruition. But the one big thing, what Socialnomics is all about, still really hasn't happened yet. And it is going to be enabled by artificial intelligence and also big data. But it's really just, right now, we've got, if I were to go and say I want to buy a new car, so let's say I had a second kid and I want a new car. Right now, it's kind of difficult to find, but your friends have all done it, right? You've got 9 friends that just had their second kid before you, and they all got one of these 2 cars, these 2 vehicles. And so what Socialnomics is all about is that it allows you to not have to do all that research, whether it's writing that last will and testament, trying to figure that out. Where do I get a lawyer? How do I write a will? I just had a baby. How do I do that? To as simple as getting that new car since now you have 2 kids. Well, socialnomics is all about, well, I'll be able to see, oh, wait, all of your friends, 9 of your top 10 friends, they bought one of these 2 cars. This is what they paid for. This is what they like. This is what they don't like about. This is what's probably best for you. And so that's what socialnomics is all about. And imagine that world, all that time, what I call multiple individual redundancy. If everyone's already done that, why do you have to do that again? Why do you have to find the lawyer or how to figure out how to write a will and testament? So it does that all for you. And so imagine all that time now going back to your family, going back to civic duty, going back to the city. So that's what gets me most excited, is that all this stuff's going to be big time savers, remove friction on stuff we don't want to do so that we can spend other time with our loved ones and giving back to our cities.
Yeah, that is a great answer in an ideal scenario. Obviously, in my neck of the woods, social media is, well, AI in particular. There's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of angst, and we saw even this past week in the New Hampshire primaries, some fake AI calls go out telling people the election's been moved to the following day, in the voice of the president, and that just creating a lot of disenfranchisement and a lot of confusion. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of navigate this moving forward. Even seeing an example this week of how it can be used many times for good, but also for purposes that aren't.
No, exactly. Any new technology, it's going to be a perfect storm this year, by the way. It's going to be a mess with the deep fakes that are going to happen. But we navigate through it. It's slower than we'd like it to be. Slower meaning sometimes we look at social media, we're still dealing with some of the teen suicide that's resulted from that. And so we work our way through it, just like cars, right? All of a sudden, hey, it'd be a good idea to have a seatbelt. It's a good idea to actually make that a law to have seatbelts. So it takes us a little longer than we'd like with technology, but over time, there'll always be those bad actors. But we do get it figured out. So then that's just a small portion of it. But by all means, any new technology, especially with AI, especially this year, it is going to be a mess.
It's interesting. Yeah, we'll slide from that because you're right. I think you described it perfectly. Mess is the word that the next 10 months are going to be politically, no matter where you are. But your style, and I'm really going to encourage folks to check out your books and some of your digital platforms. Your style has been called edutainment, and I think this is kind of an interesting thing because if you've ever had a chance, I'm going to assume that you haven't, to see any of our work that we've done, our State of the Cities, the Michigan Municipal League called them Govertainment. We have pythons that have rappelled from the ceiling. We've done dance numbers. Our last one was The Greatest Showman. We have opening numbers of 40-person dance number, 40-person choir, all designed to tell a great story, but do it in a way that's unique. And I recall the video, the little probably 2-minute video that you have on your platform. It's just fantastic. And one of the things that's on there is that humans now have, I think you say, a shorter attention span than a goldfish, 7 seconds to 8 seconds. How much is that playing into literally everything that we do in the way we consume news nowadays?
No, it's huge. And I'm going to toot your horn, Brian, because we were introduced. So those that aren't familiar, Brian's really well known across the country for just his unique style and just what he's been able to do for obviously my hometown, Rochester Hills. So it's amazing. But yeah, he even actually ran this whole, it's all the mayors across the country, and he was the president of it. So, and exactly right, it's just the storytelling that you bring. It's just always cutting edge. So it's really, really good. And when we're looking at it from the question you just asked me is, by all means, people as a quote unquote futurist, people like to ask, what's going to change? What's going to be different? That's a great question, but an even better question is what's not going to change? And that you can build stuff around. And what's not going to change is for thousands of years, people learn through stories. And so it's really, how do I take something and make it a story? How do I break through all this noise that's out there? And there's more and more noise because of the digital landscape. And so it's, how do I break through that noise? And I listen to a lot of people that are experts on storytelling. They're like, there's this arc and then these authors, and it's just too complicated for me. So I just like to simplify it, boil it down. For all you listeners out there, if you're going to give a speech to 10 people today, it's like, what story do you have? Make it personal. You've got good stories. And it's really just tell it in this format: situation, action, result. That's it. What was the situation? Then what was the action that was taken? And then what was the result? That works in business, and it works for any story that you're going to tell. And so it's really just trying to figure out, what does that look like? Like the story I told about going to Kenya, there's a situation that I'm in Kenya. Then the action is, oh, I'm going to step into Equalman. The result is now there's glasses all over the place. And so it's really about situation, action, result. So the more, and everyone doesn't like public speaking, the way to make it, people would rather die than public speak. That's been in research. And so people, and it's brought up in Seinfeld, but it's really just, if you could tell a story, that's easy to remember because you lived it. So the more personal story, and just tie it back to whatever you're addressing.
I think you and I have an affinity for one of the great storytellers of the last century, that being Walt Disney. I know I watched your speech, your commencement speech to the Spartans of Michigan State. I have a son who hopefully this semester will be a Broad Spartan, but he's on his way, certainly a sophomore there. And Walt Disney had a wonderful knack for telling stories. My portrait at City Hall here underneath my favorite quote is, "It's fun to do the impossible." Yours, I think, is if you can dream it, you can do it. Talk a little bit about that. I know in that speech, that commencement speech, one of your great lines was telling the students to be flawsome. A word some people haven't heard. You might be able to figure it out, but tell us what it means to you and why that was such an important part of your story to tell that day to those students that were graduating at Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just the Flossom's all about, people don't love us because we're perfect. They love us because we're perfectly flawed. And so there's a good example, like this girl at the Red Cross. She thought she was tweeting just to her personal account. She's a volunteer at the Red Cross, and she thinks she's putting this just to her own personal private X account, Twitter account. And she posts out there, just found a four bottle pack of Dogfish Head Midas Touch beer. When we drink, we do it right. Hashtag getting slizzard. So she thinks she's sending this to basically her boyfriend, and all of a sudden she blasts this to the global Red Cross account. But fortunately, within a couple of minutes, this other guy across the country, another volunteer, posts, we found don't worry about that rogue tweet. We found the keys, and don't worry, we've confiscated the keys. We're sober at the Red Cross. Everything's good. And that week the girl wasn't fired because they had a record amount of donations the week that happened. Huffington Post, New York Times thought it was hilarious, gave them free earned media. The beer company that was mentioned, Dogfish Head, they said, don't drink a pint of our beer this week, donate a pint of blood or donate some money to the Red Cross. And that's what being Flossom's all about. It's not about being perfect. It's about being perfectly flawed. Just saying, whoops, made a mistake. Here's what we do to fix it. And then actually follow through and fix it. And that's what being Flossom is all about.
We're here with Erik Qualman, Equalman, best-selling author, motivational speaker, really expert in the digital platform. But before all of those accolades, you grew up on the mean streets of Rochester Hills. Where would we have found you back when you were a Rochester Falcon? I know in one of your books you mentioned the Hampton Theater, which for those of us who have been here, that's a memory. But what were your favorite places, favorite place to eat, favorite place to hang when you were in high school and even before, back in the area here?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I went to Rochester High School, grew up in University Hills, and moved ninth grade to Quail Ridge Circle. But yeah, Rochester was great. And so we were able to leave for lunch when you were older, I think junior, senior year. So if we had time, it was a big thing back then. The new Taco Bell was open, but that was hard to get to. You had to sprint to your car and go to Taco Bell, in and out to get back.
These are the problems that we had to face.
These are the problems. We had a cop called RoboCop, so you had to make sure we called him RoboCop. You had to get back into school before that bell rang. La Puma's was a nice spot. Those chili dogs, I know that's still a hotbed there in Rochester. So yeah, and then Hampton Theater, gosh, it's no longer there. But yeah, working that movie theater, so many good memories, so many good memories.
You went to University Hills. This is a shout out, but do you remember Mrs. Grandy? She just retired last year, 50 years in the same building. Talk about being an impactful leader and growing where you're planted. What a another student. We've had a half a dozen people, half a dozen folks on the podcast that have all come from University Hills and Mrs. Grandy's tutelage. So that's a kind of an interesting connection.
You should have us all get on and see who can sing the University Hills fight song. I can still remember it. So
are you a bucket filler? I think is something like that. So now what I mean, obviously you've experienced some wonderful success. You've represented our region so well. What's next for you? More books in the offering? You got when are we going to see a superhero movie about Equalman? What's next?
Yeah, right now we did a card game. We got 2 daughters, and so we have a card game called Kitty Corn. So combine a kitten with a unicorn. So that's been really fun. It's just a fun game to get people off their screens. My chief of staff just handed this to me, but that's it, Kitty Corn. So it makes you meow, so you can find out who in your family is the best at meowing. But it's a fun game from 5 to 95. But that's been really fun just to see the impact that has on families, to try to get them. I'm a Flintstones Jetsons guy. Obviously, I know a ton about digital, but I'm also Flintstones. It's like, put the phone down, get off the screen. So I've got a children's book coming out, hopefully within a year and a half, called The Color of Kindness. So it's really just about how to be kind. And that kind of came out of all these schools that were using the glasses just to remind kids to be kind. So that'll be a new avenue. I haven't done a children's book before, so that'll be fun.
I can only imagine. And yeah, you're right. I forgot to mention the kitty corn game. That's awesome, because obviously, why wouldn't you take a kitty and combine it with a unicorn? And why haven't people done that already? I mean, it's just such an obvious thing. Just kidding. But obviously, in your life, you must have had some people that have invested in you. Some folks, whether they're family or other folks, that have just shared their leadership and invested in you. Who are some of those folks that have kind of crafted you in terms of giving you the confidence to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, there's so many to mention. It's almost impossible, and it is impossible. But I mean, obviously, it starts with my parents. They're amazing. They're obviously growing up in Rochester Hills. What a great community. Could always go back to, have tons of friends from University Hills, and those lifelong friends, they're impossible to replicate. So just to have those is just incredible. Coach Murphy, my tennis coach at Rochester, was incredible. Coach Hal Comerson, still stay in touch with a lot of those guys. So and they helped springboard me. I wound up playing basketball at Michigan State, and Coach Izzo, I use his lessons every day. So and I got cut as a junior at Rochester High School from the basketball team, and so I thought my dream had died of playing college basketball. And you're cut as a junior. You're probably not going to play Division I basketball at Michigan State. And I got to Michigan State. I said, man, I love basketball. I still want to be part of the program. Let me try out for this thing called manager, which is basically water boy. Try out for that, make it. And that dream didn't die. So I'd see what the players were practicing. I was lifting weights, putting on weight. Went from 6'4", 165 to like 6'7", 215, just putting in the effort. And then junior year, it was that epiphany where like, wait, I only got a year left. Like, I got to tell people about my dream. If they laugh at it, who cares? Those that laugh aren't going to help me. Those that don't, I'm going to stand on their shoulders. So junior year, once or twice a year as a manager, they'd need a practice player because people would be sick. They only had 13 players at the time. Coach Izzo carries a lot more now, but they only had 13 players. So occasionally, once or twice a year, I'd have to get in and be a practice dummy. And it was a moment my junior year, I go, oh, I'm in. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to show them that I should be on the team. So I get in. I couldn't miss a shot. The ball was coming my way. It was just like, oh my gosh, the sky had parted. Glory days. I'm showing them that I should be on this team. And then disaster kind of struck, or fate struck. I took an elbow in the mouth. And then I was born with 2 teeth missing. So I had a spacer already in there, a bridge. And this came in to help me. Things happen for you, not to you. I didn't like having that dental work throughout my life, but it helped me in this moment because it jarred all those teeth loose, and I could see there was 2 real teeth and then the fake bridge. And I hit it in a towel and kept playing because I go, this is my moment. This is my moment. I'm not going to let it go down. And 20 minutes later, the trainer's like, wait, didn't you get some teeth knocked out? I'm like, no, those are it's a bridge. It's a fake thing. It's easy to replace. And kept playing. And then at the next time out, he came over and goes, no, I can see there's 2 real teeth in this towel you tried to hide over there. So I won't bore you with that visit to the dentist, the unsuccessful visit. But what happened the next day at practice, Coach Izzo said, Qualman, I don't know if you're the dumbest guy I know or the toughest guy I know, but I'm pretty sure you're the dumbest guy I know to keep playing. But it's his way of saying basically, job well done. And just like the Lions, Izzo wants to build that program on grit and grind. So ironically, the best thing that could ever happen to me in that moment was not to make 10 more shots, was to actually get your teeth knocked out and keep playing. So then I made the team. All of a sudden I make the team and then get a scholarship to play basketball at Michigan State University. And so it's just a reminder to all of us that sometimes when you actually get your teeth knocked out or your teeth kicked in, looking back, it might be the best thing that could ever happen to you.
It's called being flawsome, if I'm not mistaken.
There you go.
I'm not mistaken. And I'm sure you've watched Tom's son Steve have a similar kind of fun year for him this year as well, and sort of never giving up. So it's a great reminder. Erik, we have one question as we close now that we ask every guest that attends that joins us on our podcast. Same question. Been doing it for 3 years, and there's no prep for it. So whatever the first kind of thing that comes to your mind, and that is a 2-parter. Number 1, if you could have lunch or dinner with any person, alive or past, who would it be? And equally as important, where would you have it?
Oh gosh, that's fascinating. I gotta go with Jesus, because you gotta go sit down and then just go figure it out. It's gonna be in Rochester Hills, Michigan, of course.
Of course.
I won't say a specific restaurant, so people don't get upset. But I've got a favorite down there, but we'll keep that to myself. But yeah, it'd be just fascinating to know like what's fact, what's fiction. What's going on.
You wouldn't even need to text him because he'd already know what you picked. You know what I mean? Like he would know where to go and what time. That's the good thing about taking Jesus is you don't really have to go over the logistics.
There you go.
That. Well, that's
there you go.
There you go. That's a great answer. We appreciate that. And like I said, you can get a lot more information. Erik, hit where everybody can find out more about your books and your digital platforms real quick as we close.
Yeah, super easy to find me. I love hearing from all your listeners. It's just Equal Man. So EQUALMAN, Equal Man at equalman.com or Equal Man across all social. So sometimes I wear tights, but obviously no. Just reach out to me, just Equal Man. It'd be great to connect with you.
Well, it's great to see you guys. Thanks for doing all that you're doing for so many folks, just in helping us understand this digital platform and where things are headed. Thank you for representing the greater Rochester Hills community so well. We also want to thank our listeners for joining us. And if you like what you see and hear, follow or subscribe, rate and review. We love all those things. As you know, the social media platform is a great way to continue to spread our message. So until our next time together, thank you, Equal Man, for joining us. Thank you for being a part of our team. And we will be back soon as we tell the stories of the people who live and work right down the street. Until then, God bless.